A lot of the injuries we see when people are in a hurry, they haven't got decent yards to work in, they've been rushing, they want to get a job done quickly. Cattle are usually stirred up, people get stirred up, and the combination never goes very well. It's a very high-risk industry. Both the government and the industry needs to work together to find some sustainable safety changes to turn around that high fatality rate.
The core business we're in Australian Country Choice is putting a steak on that family plate, and we're looking to maximise efficiency here to give you the best product that we can. We're a 21,500 head facility. We turn over approximately 110,000 head a year. The intensive livestock industry's had a really big focus on staff safety, animal welfare and livestock handling. There is no doubt when building a facility, if you don't get those right, whatever you build is not going to be a successful facility and it's going to cost you more. So it's really important that we educate our staff, provide them with the tools to do their job, and also provide them with a safe facility to do their job.
I'm a fourth generation cattleman. We breed background, fatten and then retail all our own beef. We could have up to 300 head on this property. Design in yards is something that I've always been passionate about. I remember as a little kid, Dad would be building the real thing and we'd be sitting in the dirt playing with sticks, designing our own yards.
We employ a lot of people that aren't that experienced with cattle handling, so that safe and calm environment for both the workers and the cattle was probably key.
It's a concept that a lot of cattlemen are starting to catch on to with the wagon wheel design.
A well-designed set of yards goes a long way to prevent a lot of injuries to both people and cattle. If people have never put pressure on their cattle, they've never worked with their cattle and quietened them down, they end up in the yards at a meatworks and the end user gets themselves into a really nasty situation. It's a whole supply chain issue. We see hand injuries from working in cattle yards, especially with gates. Some slide gates are not very well made and they're not made for the person. The cap rails that surround those, we often see really bad head injuries from people running into those, people being gored by cattle, usually from working too closely with cattle or being in the yards and trying to do a task that's just never going to match. And a little trip in a set of cattle yards for an older person can mean a horrific injury.
As a production facility, I suppose, in the design of our yards, the three key areas were staff safety, animal welfare and fit for purpose. We use what they term low-stress stock handling. It's about understanding where to press on an animal to get the result you want, where to stand at the gateway, which side of the animal you need to be on, when to release that pressure. I understand when that animal has some fear and you're too far in its flight zone.
The way the cattle are handled changes things a lot. If cattle load well on a truck, it's because the setup at the back has been good. We like open facilities where the cattle can see the people. You can work them from inside or outside the yard. Someone who's not so highly trained will need to work outside until they build their confidence.
They're walked up with horseback up into the processing yards. They go into a hay yard on water where they settle. Then we bring them up into a holding yard in smaller numbers, and as we move through the facility we continue to reduce how many numbers are in each yard. Into this particular yard we're standing in, where we probably have 12 to 13 head, take 4 head up into our bud box, and then those 4 head run up into the race. And we're looking to minimise the risk to our staff and also create that positive animal welfare.
They're going to be comfortable, you're going to be comfortable because they've got plenty of room. They're not going to be trying to stand on top of you because they've got nowhere to go. So as you go through, less is better.
You need to have some escape routes, simple man gates or simple bollards, which is just a hole in the fence, which is big enough for a person to slip through.
If the whole setup is built right and we don't have any trouble loading the cattle, everything normally goes 100% smoothly. The cattle walk on as quietly as anything.
There's that natural flow. They're not going to turn around and fight, and therefore made me feel a lot safer.
In terms of maintenance, we wash the shed out every day for hygiene. We regularly clean the manure out of pens. We're monitoring the depth of manure, ensuring that the staff are safe. Footing to walk on, putting down some bedding in terms of our high pressure yards to ensure some safety for staff and their cattle. The maintenance is ongoing every day. It is a simple process, and if done well, it works really well. We inspect all the gates, all the chains, make sure there's no loose rails, anything in the yard that's going to cause an incident to a staff member or an animal, that's a stop work and remove. We conduct those daily 3 times and get it fixed so that everyone is safe.
100% safety is paramount because the last thing we want is a driver injured and transported away to a hospital from a fall or getting kicked by a beast.
Within our team we have a great awareness of animal welfare and human safety. Therefore, we're not afraid to take anything to upper management if we feel that something is not safe and needs improving.
Every time it gets changed, it's been for the better. changed facility designs, changing the way we handle cattle, spending time with those animals, building up their trust and their confidence. A lot of those problems that we were creating ourselves have gone away.
Safety for me was number one priority because often it's down to me doing a lot of it.
And at the end of the day, if Sarah gets hurt, everything stops. We had to build with the wheelchair in mind, but what we found, over the years is that you don't have to be a great cattleman to work cattle in these yards. It's an electric over hydraulic, joystick operated block gate and 5-way draft, so I can sit there in my chair and as Sarah's processing cattle, I can either block them in the race and change the draft, or if I can see what's coming, I'll change the draft prior, yeah.
Some of those simple designs that Rob has put into place can also be translated to a family property where perhaps you've got older workers who really do need that separation and really can't climb rails and do the things that they used to do. It's putting the science behind it to come up with a really good design that's very effective for cattle and very, very effective for people.
The beauty of the wagon wheel design, as we call it, is cattle can't see the lead cattle hitting the end of one pen and turning back on themselves. They think they're always moving forward, and so they keep flowing, and it all comes down to animal welfare, and so our design, I think it addresses that. The handles on the slides, we put it at a height that if you are going to run into the handle when the slide gate's shut, it'll be at your shoulder or elbow, not at your head or your knee. We've put guards around as many things as we can. Higher cap rails over our gateways so no one's going to go belting their heads. Whenever we build something, regardless of what it is, we build it with safety in mind. And when we do build, we try to build it right the first time, so we're not doing it 10 times over. One of your most valuable assets are your employees, because if they're hurting off on workers' comp, a couple of days in the hospital because of an injury, well then you're not getting any production out of them. So it's certainly something that everybody should take on board and take it pretty seriously.
I think the beauty is too, it's Rob and I still talking to each other. Before we had someone else standing there, and often we do employ backpackers, so there's a communication barrier. Whereas today, Rob and I just speak to each other and he just does his thing and I do my thing. And it's enjoyable now.
With cattle yard design, I think it's very important to understand that each operation is unique. We can all use the same principles, but we've got to understand that fit for purpose.
The right design for cattle yards is the design that works for you, for the enterprise that you're running and for the type of cattle you have. We need to make sure that the people understand at least a little bit of animal behaviour and the pressure points for animals that make them flow. When we need to make sure the stockyards are located in a place where animals will flow through nicely. If we have all of those things matching, there's a lot less stress to the cattle, there's a lot less stress to the handlers, there's a lot less injury.
You don't need to spend huge amounts of money. You can build simple systems that work very well. You just need to think about them a little bit, and that will make the whole system flow a lot better.
It was all just a trial and error, and what didn't work, well, right, I need to change that. And then we got to where we are now, and it works very well.
We have good staff, we have happy staff, we have healthy staff.
The drivers, they think it's great because they don't have to get in with the cattle. We never have an injury here at Brindley Park, so that just says it all for itself.
There's less fatigue, it's not as hands-on. I've got energy at the end of the day. I go home happy, and I come back to work the next day happy and confident, knowing that I can step into those yards and that I am safe.
It's just amazing the change that's happened. The cattle are flowing really well. The added training and mentoring that they're doing has really, really paid off.
It's a culture. If one does it, eventually everyone's going to do it.
Things are changing pretty quickly, and we're going to see a complete evolution of the way things are done in the industry.
What used to take us all day with 120 breeders, in the new yards takes us about 3 hours. But it works for our situation. I think anyone that stepped into these yards would find that they'd work quite well for them.
They did a lot of research and they've come up with a fantastic design that suits them and the way that they need to work. If you can fix that gate that doesn't swing properly, if you can pick up that piece of wire, if you can grease that hinge, please do that. Don't wait till it becomes a huge job. If we don't do that maintenance on our yards, it doesn't matter how well designed they are, it doesn't matter how well trained your staff are or how quiet your cattle are. Make sure you're not putting yourself or anybody else in an unsafe situation. I would love to see a day when there's 0 injuries to people in a stockyard, and just as importantly, 0 injuries to animals.